The approach for tonight, this is really an open forum format. And that means you get to do the talking. I'm going to moderate and try to stay out of the way, but we really want to hear from all of you about how you're dealing with remote learning and hybrid environments during the pandemic. We're going to use survey statistics and takeaways, key takeaways, and respondent quotes as prompts for an honest discussion. We conducted a survey over the summertime, and I'm going to share some of the survey statistics with you and some of the key takeaways, and we'll use those as a basis for proceeding with the discussion. We're going to check survey results against current thinking. So the survey was conducted back in the summertime, in July and August, and we kind of want to use you folks as a sounding board to see, is what we said back in July and August still holding true, or has your thinking evolved or changed in any significant way since then? And we just ask that you unpack your thoughts and share everything, obstacles, challenges, frustrations, struggles, lessons learned, any inspiring stories you have, and certainly tips that can be helpful to your colleagues who are also on the line tonight. So with that said, just give a little background on the survey. As I said, we did the survey in July and August. We had about 400 teachers, administrators, counselors, support staff from around the country that participated. We had a pretty good mix. 43% of our respondents were core curriculum, and then the rest were sprinkled among administrators, school counselors, support staff, and a catch-all category of others. We were strong in respondents from the South, and the rest was fairly evenly distributed through the Midwest, the West, and the Southwest and Northeast. So what I'm going to do is I'll share a couple of statistics from the survey, share a couple key takeaways, and then a couple quotes that relate to those facts and statistics and takeaways. And then we'll stop and I'll ask you guys to chime in and participate on that theme that we're discussing. So the first statistic is 73% of our survey respondents felt adequately supported by their school or district. Another 63% said they were somewhat confident in their school or district's plan for approaching COVID. And again, this was over the summertime, so prior to the start of the school year. Some of the key takeaways from this category are educators were taken by surprise and not entirely ready for the adversity of teaching during COVID-19, which is not a surprise. However, aided by adequate support from their school districts, especially in the areas of technology training, they were able to generally be able to adapt to remote learning. And then some even surprised themselves with their own resilience and creativity. And I wanted to start with sort of a positive statistic and some positive feedback from folks as a way to get us going. And a couple of quotes of what folks had to say in this category is, contrary to my initial fears of distance education, the circumstances provided opportunities for me to work more closely with students, to establish more productive collaborative partnerships with colleagues, and to my surprise, the quality of interactions as well as my relationships with students and teachers grew during this period. So that's good. Another quote relevant to this category, I learned that for some students, distance learning works much better than face-to-face whole class learning. Our district should have virtual learning opportunities for students who would thrive better with this instruction. It's also a way to continue education with students who are suspended or sick at home. Virtual learning also enables teachers to continue instruction on snow days. So now it's your turn. I would really appreciate some discussion and feedback about how supported you feel heading into this school year from your district, and how confident you are in the plan that they have for you and your students as you return to school?
Our school is in a hybrid plan, and we knew that August 1st. We go half the alphabet one day and half the alphabet the other day. Some of our special education students that are in like our ELP program come every day because they need that support. I think that, or I feel that our district is doing everything that they can to help us. However, it's extremely overwhelming with the, at least for me, the amount of planning. And I have a technology degree. So for those teachers who have not stayed up on different ways to use technology in the classroom, they have been struggling a great deal. And I am concerned because this is the third week of September and we have teachers at their breaking points just because of the amount of planning that has to go into every single day. Labor Day weekend, I spent over 12 hours trying to get ready for the next week, and that didn't include grading anything. And so, and I know I'm meticulous and I know I overplan, but it's a lot. And I don't think districts were truly prepared either.
Do you think that's led to some uneven levels of educational experience for students based on how well their teachers are adapting to technology?
I would say yes. I would also tell you that I feel I am failing my special education students miserably because of the every other day plan. And it's not anybody's fault. It's just the plan that they put in place. But trying to make sure that you're meeting those kids' needs, their frustration level at this point is quite high. And so some of my kids have already checked out, and some the other day, last week on Friday, I was trying to help a girl upload something from her computer to Google Classroom, and she's a special education student. She just slammed the lid down on her Chromebook and said, "I'm done." And so it's challenging for students who work well with computers, and for those kids that don't, it's overwhelming. It's just absolutely overwhelming for them. I did a real paper and pencil activity today and split. The kids at home did something and the kids in class did something different. And one kid said, "I'm so glad to use paper and pencil. This is really cool." So, I just think the whole situation is overwhelming for everyone.
Anyone else have a perspective on on preparedness that you'd like to share in terms of support from your district, how you feel about their plan going into the school year?
We had our summer academy back in August, and that is a chance for teachers to do professional development and get for it. I offer a session on technology, and my session on technology was the only one for the entire district to go through different programs that teachers might use in their classroom. And I had 250 people attend that session because people are saying, "I don't know what to do. I don't know how to work with kids to get them to respond, how their thinking is." I just presented some things that I use in the classroom. We still have teachers that are struggling, trying to find things that are going to work for them. I'm going to be really honest. Part of it is their reluctance to ever try technology before this year. And so now when faced with this is how instruction has to be delivered, they're not reaching the top of the ocean. So that's kind of where we're at. And it's not without a lot of effort, and it's not without a lot of time and energy being spent. They're just overwhelmed.
Yep. And remind me again, Deborah, of what area of the country you're in and what grade level you teach?
I'm in the Midwest.
And what grade levels are you teaching?
We're middle school, 6, 7, and 8. I spent the first week of school just going over Google Classroom with my students, so we could remember how to attach a document, what it meant by classwork, what a stream meant. It had been a long time since March, and so I feel like I did a good job of getting them into classroom, but they still struggle going from tab to tab. They struggle following simple directions right now because it's just overwhelming for them as well. And parents are overwhelmed. I had a mother break in the other day and said, "I'm really sorry, Mrs. Masker, but we're really lost. Could you back up and start over again?" So I know parents are overwhelmed as well.
Anyone else have a perspective they'd like to share on preparedness and support from your district so far in the school year?
Well, Deborah, I think got a little bit, this is Kathy, how are you?
Hi.
Can you hear me? So Deborah, I think, touched on pretty much, I think, everything. And I think it's interesting that you asked her where she's located, because here in New Jersey, I think overwhelming is clearly the word of the week. But she normalizes, at least for me now, I feel a little bit better that I'm not the only one that feels this way, or at least is standing on the sidelines watching everything unfold here. So I kind of feel like, you ever see like the circus actor at the carnival, the person with the plates, they're standing there and they're throwing the plates up and they're trying to keep them all balanced above their head. And like one by one, they come crashing down. I think, I don't think we were prepared. And I'm actually a little bit, I don't want to say angry about it, but I'm frustrated that we knew in March this was going to be, well, May, I think, was the final decision for our district. And that the whole summer, they really just planned, a couple of scenarios for the road to, recovery or plan back or whatever they renamed it. And I don't think that they spent enough time focusing on, like Deborah had mentioned, the training. Her district allowed 200. We had a limit of 5 people who could attend maybe a half a dozen or a dozen workshops, and they weren't really by trainers. We had really good colleagues who were figured out a few different programs, and so they were sort of turnkeying it. And so I kind of feel where Deborah's now sitting every morning. I'm like some days I feel like I'm a DJ. I'm a air traffic controller because I have my hands, I'm like moving and I'm entertaining, and then I'm trying to, and then I sound like, if you have young kids, the theme for, in the beginning of SpongeBob, can you hear me? Like, I'm just, can you hear me? Can you hear me? It's like, I can't hear you. And I'm like, I can't hear you all day. So I think it's like a little bit of everything that Deborah touched on there. A lot of inequity, of inequity for students.
It's one of the things that I've been thinking about is sort of the difference in the experience of virtual learning based on, age and grade. That, it's completely different if you, are a junior or senior in high school and you know how to use technology and you've been using it every day for years, as opposed to trying to teach, 8-year-olds or 7-year-olds on, virtually.
Imagine kindergarten. I watch them, I walk by, it's just like frightening. But it's the inequity across the board. It's the inequity in the training. It's inequity in the devices, the materials. My daughter's in a school with the hotspots. I mean, it's unacceptable at this point. There's been kids out of school for 2 weeks without a hotspot. It's unacceptable that, the districts are asking, students and teachers to work remotely and not give them the tools, The education is one thing, but the actual devices, I mean, we don't have the devices, the hotspot, in a more urban situation here. And, we failed to be prepared, at least where I am. I feel they were focused on the hybrid model, but at some point we knew that we needed to improve our digital experience after last year. We had a lot of loss in my particular area. Just one student last year just one of them had 3 family members, but our district was like a little bit of a hot spot too, a little ground zero for a while. So they weren't prepared. But thanks for letting me listen. And thank you, Deborah, for normalizing that like frustration, all of it. She pointed out a lot of great things here.
Well, I appreciated your comment about air traffic controller, because that's what I feel like. I guess I'm fortunate that I had purchased my own laptop. And so I have 2 laptops going in my classroom, one to keep Google Meet up so we don't get kicked out, and the other is for me to present from. And I also have a clear touch TV monitor behind me, so I get the air traffic controller and DJ analysis.
Yeah.
I have kids appointed in my classroom to remind me if I haven't hit record on Google Meet. They're getting really good at saying, Mrs. Masker, unmute yourself, because
Yeah.
I have feedback from one device to the other. And I mean, they're laughing along with me because we're just trying to take it one day at a time, one step at a time. There are some days I feel like I walk out and I want to do a Rocky run because I made it through the day. And there are days I just go out and sit in my car and cry because it was so bad.
Yeah.
And so they're getting better. I'm not saying they're great. I don't think I'm the teacher that I can be, but I'm doing the best I can.
Yeah.
And Deborah, with that comment, oh, go ahead, Catherine.
So I said, but then that's a hard, we have a situation where, parents are in our classrooms. And so, they don't understand the pedagogy, a lot of different things. And then we're in their homes, and it's just, we're taking a lot of heat, I think, a lot of judgment, because parents are frustrated, and the teachers are parents as well. So it's just, I feel like, a lot of us feel like we're coming up short. I think Deborah also touched on that. You're running out of steam, and you just feel like a failure. You feel like we're failing.
Yeah, so I want to pivot on both your comment, Catherine, and on Deborah's comment about sort of the stress and anxiety that teachers are feeling with this. And I think we saw that in the survey results. So educators are under extreme amount of stress. Many are stressed about uncertainty, anxious about their health and well-being, and feel that they're not included in the decision-making process, or that decisions are made that may not be in their best interest. So all these things are sort of spinning around and converging at once. And I think there's some really good quotes that we got from the survey that really speak to this. First one is, I was not trained in virtual teaching. It was the most stressful time of my life. I missed the social, emotional, daily contact with my students. It's been the worst time of my life. The second one, I'm dismayed at how quickly the thankful parents have turned on the teaching profession as a whole now that social distancing fatigue is set in and a new school year looms. Once again, it seems teachers are expected to sacrifice themselves and their families for the good of their students. And then the third one here is, is there going to be a life insurance policy like there is for school shootings on us? I'm very anxious. As much as I want to be back with my students, I don't want to be a dedication page in the yearbook this year.
My gosh.
So I'll just, ask the group to sort of expand on these thoughts about how much stress and anxiety you're feeling right now from all different angles.
Yeah, I could start us. I'm sure that everybody has a lot of, how do I say it in a nice way? We just have a lot on our shoulders right now. And without adequate support, we do feel the pressure nonstop from the parents. And then there's constant additions being added. Okay, well, you did this, now let's add. All right, now we have to have the kids eat in our classroom. So there's literally no break. So we're eating with the students. So we're the cafeteria staff. They're like, okay, now you need to make sure that they're washing in between every single you know, every time they switch blocks, when they walk in the classroom, when they leave, in between special area. So, you know, we're the nurse now too. And then, you know, then it's just getting these kids to maintain. So I'm hybrid. So I have a class in the morning. My homeroom's virtual. So the students that wanted to stay virtual, so I have 24 at home. And then in the afternoon, I'm departmentalized. So in the afternoon, I have my other class. But it's just, you know, I'm trying to keep everybody at the same level, and the stress level to be able to maintain is difficult.
I would agree with Mary. One of the things that, I mean, I've always prided myself in knowing my kids very well. And so this year with the masks, I worked, I guess, 3 times as hard to make sure I have names and at least eyes and hair figured out. No mouth. I don't know what that looks like under the mask. And I've worked extra hard at that to try to maintain and build those relationships with kids. But it's definitely been a challenge. One of the things that our district or my building did yesterday was we have PD every Monday with an early out, and they gave us a choice board, and one of the choices was to plan and work in your room. And so I got to plan and work in my room from 12:30 to 3:30, and I got things done that I'd been trying to do for a month, and it was like heaven. And I hope that they offer that a lot more often on those Mondays, because I know that I appreciated that time. The team of teachers that I am on appreciated that time. I was able to contact parents that I hadn't been able to get a hold of. And it was like the sun had dawned when I walked out of school yesterday. But for me, knowing that people at home, parents are watching every move that I make in the classroom, has added stress to it.
Thanks, Deborah. Anyone else? Any comments on stress and anxiety in dealing with remote learning?
I think it's harder when you're the helper, or you're generally, I think the last person just mentioned that, like, to get to know the kids, you're generally the person that everybody turns to, and it's hard to be the ongoing cheerleader, you know, and you're just running out of steam, you know. I think that's where it gets harder. I think for my district, and I think it's the lack of communication. And I know it's, you know, we get daily in New Jersey, the governor's on every day with the updates, which are not really updates, but I think it's the communication from the district. You know, they made the decision to stay remote literally like 2 days before. So there's that anxiety, you know, and then we go in, and now I heard today, you know, we're going to start our hybrid phase on the 19th of October, but now we have to move classrooms because the number, my max is 5 students plus me. And then, you know, we have more students than teachers. And so now they're going to have now they're all of a sudden going to find substitutes that we couldn't find before COVID to sit in the classrooms while the teachers some are at home and in here. And then it's just like, you know, but I have a feeling, you know, we're going to go through this whole thing and get all worked up. And then maybe the 2 days before again, be told, you know, now we're not doing it because the numbers are starting to creep up around here again. So, you know, I think that's, you know, and then so for people like me, I tried to be the person, you know, that's like, all right, we got this. And now it's like, oh my gosh, you know, I think we're running out of steam. And it's like 2 weeks in.
Yeah.
I'm usually like this at like May, you know.
That was another comment we saw in the survey, was that just not knowing what the plan was going to be was really hard for a lot of teachers, because they either wanted to build around, you know, a remote lesson plan or a hybrid plan, but not knowing if they were going to go back, and then if they're going to go back, and then they're only going to be back for a few weeks, and then they're going to get, you know, shifted to virtual. That's that's been a great source of anxiety is sort of the unknown.
And not to have been part of the planning process included. So you can at least say to yourself, okay, well, we know that we're going to do this or this because you're involved in the kind of, but to not have a choice or a voice, you know, you're kind of, yeah, you're not really, it's a lot. It's a lot of anxiety. And then you have to, it's like we're like used car salesmen. We're selling the story to the kids like, hey, this is great, you know. Then you have to turn it around and put a spin on it, a positive spin on it. It's a little tough.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So let's move on. The top 3 challenges that were identified through the survey. 1, accountability. How do we hold students accountable in a virtual environment? 2, access by students to the right technology to be able to learn. Teachers felt like they all had pretty good access to technology, but they were concerned about their students' access, and particularly among rural populations, minority populations, and special education. And then the equality piece, and we'll see these in some of the comments, that many feel standards for attendance and evaluation have been neglected, difficult or impossible to support students who experience educational neglect at home and don't have parental support. Teachers have many concerns about remote learning, mostly regarded to the student experience. Only 11% of teachers cited technology access for themselves as a top concern, but 59% cited it as a top concern for their students. And then educators cite specific populations: rural students lacking internet connection, inner city students, bilingual students, and of course, special education. Some educators view face-to-face communication and classroom interaction as crucial for motivation and social emotional learning. And let's look at what they said. So we have to figure out grading. We can't just keep saying it's a pandemic, so make sure grades reflect that. We're professionals, we know how to make accommodations. Grading was such a joke that I began to call it the pastdemic. Parent communication and accountability were the 2 biggest struggles and issues I found. Students wouldn't always log on daily, and whenever parents were called, nothing much would change. Lastly, students with emotional needs are difficult to serve remotely. Many checked out as soon as school went remote. Anybody have some perspective to share in this area? Mary?
Oh yeah, definitely. So we were told that the students cannot get any or grade any lower than what they received on their report card for 3rd quarter. Also, attendance, we couldn't mark them absent for attendance. So the students soon found out that they were going to pass as long as they passed 3rd quarter. And then they also found out that they really don't have to come and participate. I have elementary, so I had a little bit more, I would say, excitement and buy-in because thankfully the lockdown had happened toward the end of the school year. So the students, I continued to teach. But most of the time we were told that we were supposed to teach new content. And if we were teaching new content, it couldn't be anything that we graded. And so then that really made it difficult for all of us that wanted to continue teaching fresh new content, especially for me, I teach social studies, reading and writing. So I wanted to keep those kids excited doing the Cold War and a lot of hands-on dressing up. So that really was my saving grace, was that buy-in from my students that I had already built up with them. So every Zoom we dressed up, like every day, if we were studying. So we did the space race. So I had the students dress up what they felt the space race was about. And then we did a lesson on it. We did a lot of scavenger hunts related to resources around the house. I did a lot of Play-Doh and Lego building. So we built the Berlin Wall with Legos or pillows, whatever they could find around them. So that was kind of neat too, was just thinking outside the box, something different that I had ever thought. And not me always providing the resources and the materials for the students, allowing that more of the student choice and freedom. So, it was difficult, but I think it was neat because I was able to, I would say, stretch and challenge myself to become a different type of teacher than I had normally been.
Do you think there will be some residual impact to sort of the relaxed accountability standards? So next year, when you get the students from the grade below you who couldn't get a grade any lower than what they had the previous semester, so is it going to be hard for you to judge how much they actually learned, and is there going to be some catching up to do?
So we already had noticed a big difference. So, and we had emails from the fourth grade teachers that were sending, their kids up to us in fifth grade saying, hey, just give me a heads up. We didn't get to go to, through the Civil War, which is a South Carolina standard for fourth grade. And so they're like, I'm sorry, you're supposed to start at Reconstruction, but you're going to have to start at Civil War. So I would say the transparency is really nice, as long as we were in the same building and you're willing to admit, the sections that maybe weren't covered as well as they should have. But also not feeling guilty or bad. I know a lot of us teachers are very type A, and we want to make sure everything's perfect. And, we want to impress the kids. We want to get them excited. And so when, all that COVID had hit, I think, and then the accountability was low, we were all trying to, and I'm sure, Deborah and everybody else were trying really hard to throw out new tricks to keep the kids excited. But, I couldn't imagine what the middle school, high school did when they found out that they weren't held accountable anymore.
We struggled with the accountability from March to the end of the school year. Our students were encouraged to do assignments. They were not required to do assignments. And so we had kids just check out. My grandsons complained to me that my daughter made them do every assignment that they were required to do. And I said, good for her. And I heard no more complaints from my grandsons. But we had students that checked out. And now this fall, their assignments are required. Completion is required. They are just falling apart at the seams because they didn't have to do it. And now they have to do it. We have been emailing parents and calling parents about lack of completion. And it's pretty prevalent this first 4 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever we're in right now, that these kids are struggling because they didn't have to turn anything in before, so why should they have to turn it in now? We're starting to get that turned around. We're starting to see kids picking up the pace a little bit and getting those things done, but it's difficult pulling them from last spring to now. And I mean, we've got our nose to the grindstone, and we're not going to let up until we're all on one team together. But it's tough. I'm trying to pull from last. I do the National History Day project at my school, and we were to compete on March 19th, and we shut down school March 16th, and all their projects were locked in the school, all of them, that were exhibits and play pieces. And thank goodness I had taken pictures of the exhibits the Friday before, just because I had a very unnerving feeling. And we worked through the whole thing, and I had kids compete at nationals, but it was a lot of Zoom meetings, it was a lot of Google Hangouts. The custodian put the exhibits out on the sidewalk, and I delivered them to kids' front porches and rang the doorbell and ran and waved at them so they knew that their exhibits had arrived at their houses. I mean, this is just what teachers do to help kids be successful. I just use that as an example of people who just do what's needed to be done to get kids involved and wanting the best for kids, but the stress is terrible.
Yeah. Anybody else have any tips or tricks that you found particularly effective in holding students accountable in a virtual environment?
I don't know if this is a tip or a trick, but every day when we start class, I try to come up with some unusual way for everybody to chime in. One day, what is the most boring fact about you? And everybody had to answer. And one boy's last name is Smith, and he said, more boring could you be with the last name of Smith? We had some great answers each day, but I do try to come up with a different way for kids to respond to me every day. I'm starting to run out of ideas, so I could use all the help I could get in that area. But it certainly allows me to hear every kid's voice in the classroom at least once a day.
Mary, you got any tips or tricks for
Yeah,
Deborah?
so another fun thing that I did, and this is just an idea thrown out there, but I did a lot of cooking and used the kids, so a lot of hands-on activities. So, for example, I'm just thinking Cold War because that's where we were chronologically, but everybody had, and if they didn't make a cake, that's fine, but we just made a cookie cake. So we rolled out the cookie and they came with it. And then their job was to be able to use the breakout rooms, and they made and decorated based on what they had started and researched, with me in class, but then also gone and done additional research. And so what was really exciting was, then those kids that didn't have the icing or the cookies were able to then run around their house and get pieces. So someone used dominoes. So they made a dominoes ring. And then they used, the different, communist versus free. And so they used the, they flipped over the dominoes. I had another child use those little Lincoln logs. So the same type of idea. So it really got the kids pumped. So the kids that were able to participate, I told them about 2 days in advance for every hands-on lesson. So we did that just about every other day or so. But then it really allowed the kids to stretch what they knew and think outside the box, that Bloom's taxonomy. So with that building, so that really got the kids pumped when we worked on building and manipulating history to bring it to life.
Great, thanks, Mary. Sharita just chatted in and said, here's a trick. Contact the parent guardian after you've tried to give the student an unsuccessful pep talk, and miraculously they start back working. And maybe that's when the parent takes the smartphone away, and that's what motivates them. Okay, moving on. So these are items that teachers said when school starts again, these are things we could use more of. So interestingly, the top response here was more donations of stuff from the community, technology, donations to make purchases for classrooms, things to enable more effective remote learning. Certainly more training was needed, particularly in the areas of technology. And then 56% said access to families was really important to be successful in a virtual environment. And then clearer policies from the school district and administration. So in order to raise educators' confidence to continue, these resources were identified as the top 4 needed heading into the new school year. What did they say? Creating open communication with students' parents helped me a lot during the sudden change to remote learning. They were the ones who helped me keep the students focused at home. And we need to understand that remote learning is not equitable and cannot replace the classroom experience. And the last one, while we're all experiencing an unprecedented time full of unknowns and uncertainties, it's imperative to try to maintain a sense of positivity. Having a positive attitude was very beneficial when dealing with my students. It helped to ease some of their anxiety. I thought this last quote was particularly insightful because, you know, we talked more towards the top of the call about all the stresses and anxieties that you were feeling. And, you know, if you're not managing your stress and anxiety well, it's showing with your students. So I thought this quote was particularly insightful in terms of, you know, you've got to stay positive if you're going to keep your kids positive and motivated. Any follow-on thoughts to that?
I think a lot of it emulates from you, and I hope that day the kids do not see the stress from me. I try to be, you know, my same positive, walk around the room, you know, teacher, teach from all areas of the room. It's a good thing I have a theater voice, as I tell them, because then I can walk away from my device and the kids at home can still hear me. You know, I keep asking the kids, what can I do to help them more? One of them things that I now do every day is if I put something on the Clear Touch to fill in a graphic organizer, whatever, I also type it into the chat so that they can all see. That has really helped kids. So one of the ways that I stay positive is to ask them what additional things can I do to help them. And they usually come up with some great ideas, and then we all move forward together.
I don't hide really so much. I actually use the, you know, I'm having that kind of day to kind of keep it real. I had listened to a workshop a little while ago. It was kind of neat about the new 3 R's and the focus, you know, which is I'm kind of really trying to hone in on relationships, you know, making sure I keep establishing the relationships with the students. And I think a caller before had said that, you know, like I as well have, I kind of make that my first goal. But the relationships, the relevance, like why we're learning this, the importance of it. I feel like I've become more creative, trying to do more project-based things. Like we were in lockdown. I mean, what we were going to do, you know, so kids we had cardboard box challenges. They created their own games and toys out of stuff they had in the house. So, but the relevance to learning, you know, you were learning different skills that way. And then resiliency, you know, we went through a lot, you know, again, I mentioned my students in my particular area. We had a lot of parents in the medical field at different levels, not just nursing, actually, you know, you know, more of the custodial help, janitors and such in hospitals. So when we're having a bad day, you know, and I'm just honest, like this is rough, guys. And you know what? It's an epic failure today. And they think it's funny, but you know, I'm kind of modeling the good and the bad as well. Like, okay, so I'm going to get back up. And then they like also being the helpers. They love, I think another call also mentioned that they love being able to tell me how to, you know, press that button, press this button, you know. So I think it's sometimes a good thing to have that, you know, and kind of work through it together. So I think sometimes that's actually been a good, although it happens too much that I'm like struggling, but I think it's okay. You know, it's like you want to model that as well. And so I'm modeling, you know, that kind of, how do you teach resiliency? You know, we go through this together and then we're all like, we get excited when, you know, we're watching something try to load and it goes on, we're like, yay. So, I mean, it's just, I don't know, that's how I'm kind of taking it, you know.
You know, it's that transparency piece too, showing that we're real, that we're human. So if things don't go wrong, we're the ones that are modeling how not to freak out and go crazy. We're the ones that are showing that it's okay. We all make mistakes, and this is, you know, this is how we deal with it. We're going to stay calm. We're going to talk through it. We're going to ask for help. And so just like she was saying, like we are their role models, and some of them don't really have good ones at home. So I think even if we're virtual, it's the same ways to kind of show those kids how they should be, and some of those strategies, like she had said, with perseverance. And one thing that I always did with my kids, and I still do today with my hybrid model, is that I allow a bubble time before and after each Zoom. So I tell the kids, you have to be on at 7:30 a.m., but if you come on at 7, it's kind of like office hours. So if you were lost on something or need additional help, or you couldn't download something the right way or turn it in, come see me. I know that there are not going to be a lot of people there, so it's not going to be a big deal. But then they feel that, that's like their time that they can come up to my teacher desk per se and be able to ask for personal help.
Yep. Great. Thank you. So one of the last questions we asked was just sort of how you're all feeling about the profession and your financial security related to your position. I know that many school districts have had cutbacks as they've gone to a remote environment. So 50% of you felt that someone in your family was affected financially by the pandemic, whether it was you personally or a spouse or a close family member. But 62% saw no effect on your retirement savings or your plans to leave the profession, which as a parent is reassuring for me, because that was sort of one of my big fears going into this is just that teachers were going to leave the profession and the quality of education was going to go down because there was going to be such a high rate of turnover and such a challenge to replace teachers in vacant positions. Have any of you seen that in your districts? Has there been a lot of turnover, or are you and your colleagues sort of buckling down, saying we accept this challenge and we're going to fight our way through it?
This is Sharita. I hadn't seen any turnover, but my colleagues and I, we have a very tight team at my campus, and we've been on a teacher group chat, kind of like our support system, where we can vent and ask questions and share information. So it's really made us tighter and stronger, because we understand that yes, all of this craziness is going on with COVID-19. There's a lot of things we just don't know. Everything is a day-by-day situation. But the common goal is still to make sure that our students are learning. And how can we best do that? I think teachers, the job stability for teachers is great. You're not being pushed. Well, I'm not going to say you're not being forced out, but you still had a job when it started. If you decided to stay with it, you still have a job. And other people didn't have that luxury. My sister, they were furloughed, and then it's, no jobs available. Once everything started to really turn and just unsure as far as when the world would open back up 100%. I've had friends who they went furloughed, they received unemployment, and then finally they got a notification that this will be your last day of employment. So we've really just been trying to take the good with the bad. I'm still excited about teaching, just as excited as I was when I first started. My students are still the center of what I do and the reason why I do what I do. So it's just, everybody has their days, but again, it's that mindset, and I use everything as a teaching moment for my kids. Yes, you will have those days. Yes, you will have those times, but let's flip it. How can we take it and make the most of it? So that's just my 2 cents.
I agree with Sharita. The kids are everything to me, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to help them be successful. And that will probably change whether we go back to entirely remote learning at some point, if that happens, if we stay in the hybrid model for the rest of the year, if we ever get to have full classrooms again. I'm going to do whatever it takes so that my students are successful. I know a lot of my students have experienced stress with parents being laid off, parents not having jobs to come back to. And so I know that the stress level for them is high. So if I can do everything that I can to make school, and I put normal in quotes, as much as possible, that really, really helps them. We also have a pretty tight teacher support system in my building. And we are in teams per grade level, and then we are in subject teams. And I know I can't do my job without the support of those people. So we just have to continually be there for each other, boost each other up, help each other through the tough times, laugh and cry together. And I think we'll make it. I really do. It's just going to take some creative teaching, some looking at things differently, and finding ways to support our kids when they're not face to face with us and keep them engaged so that they can continue to grow.
Thank you for that, Deborah. I think, as a parent, I certainly appreciate it. I mean, you guys have a really tough job under normal circumstances. And I just can't imagine the environments that you're working in now and the challenges that you're facing. And we saw some of that in our survey results, and I appreciate everybody's input and feedback this evening. And again, just want to thank you for everything you do to educate our children. It means a lot to us, and you guys are certainly underappreciated. And that's one of the reasons that we run the LifeChanger of the Year program, to make sure that folks like you get the recognition and reward throughout the year that you deserve. So thank you very much. I appreciate everybody's participation this evening.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. This was so much fun. We appreciate you and all that you do and reaching out for us teachers. So there's not a lot of warm fuzzies that go out, and so we really, really appreciate it.
Well, we hope that we are the happy oasis, in your day when things might be going wrong in so many ways on any given day. The LifeChanger of the Year program wants to be the happy place for you to come and take a break and celebrate your accomplishments and those of your colleagues. So we thank you. And we will be posting a link to this recording online, and we'll send it out to the participants via email follow-up. So thank you again, and appreciate all your participation this evening.
Thank you. We appreciate you all.
Thank you. Good luck, everybody.
Stay
Great.
safe. Stay safe, everybody.